review the course modules and let you know where we're going to be going in the next 11 weeks. Today, we're just reviewing what the toolbox is, going over the course, doing some logistics in terms of working with you to set up your computer to install the toolbox, and go over with you a example data management scheme in terms of the folders. Because one of the hardest things about data management, I think, is keeping track of all the different files, that some of which are the raw data, some of which you've manipulated a little bit. So we have a default data management system, just setting up your computer. Then in 2 weeks, we will have worked with you individually to install the toolbox on your computers, and then we're going to start entering data into the toolbox, starting with the admin stuff. It's boring, but it has to be done first so that when you import data, the toolbox already knows what samplers and sites you have that this data was gathered with. And then the next module is entering QC data. Whenever you have a valid data file, it has to be bracketed before and after with a passing QC check. Most of the criteria pollutants recommendations involve at least making a site visit and a manual QC check at least once every 2 weeks. It's a good idea to, every 2 weeks, enter the QC check that you've done and then import the data, and that way you'll have 2-week spans of data bracketed by passing QC checks. Of course, you can input QC checks for a year at a time and then import a year's worth of data into the toolbox. So module 4 is entering QC data, and we will work with you on whatever QC data you enter, even if it's only maintenance checks and instrument self-checks. You need to document as much as possible. That will greatly help defend your data's validity. The next module 5 is about generating toolbox ready files. These are files that we have examples to demonstrate, but you're going to be using your data. So by this point, you will have been looking at your data, decided which, perhaps of multiple parameters, you want to import into the toolbox, and you'll be getting started actually putting your data into your toolbox. Then the next module, module 6, is actually importing that data into that toolbox, including the initial data reviews. And we'll show you the different flags that you can assign to your data, including things like looking at where the value from 1 hour to the next has changed by more than a certain number. Then the next module, module 7, is importing metadata. If you have metadata, then you'll be using your own metadata for this. If you don't, then you'll be continuing to import your own continuous parameter data. Then module 8 is data validation. This is the point at which you look at perhaps any audit reports or intercomparisons that you've done, and you look at the historical data. Do my data make sense? And you assign AQS null value codes to those data that you say, nope, these are bad data, including the reason why. Then module 9 is super cool. Module 9 is reports and charts, and you'll be generating reports and charts using your data from the toolbox. Then module 10, we get into the stuff that is really boring but really important, the module in which you put in the AQS codes in terms of the protocol codes for your site, for your sampler, for your method, for your units, and you get those established one time in the toolbox, and then as long as you don't change, you can produce AQS data files, which is what we do in the last module, module 11, AQS data file generation for both your parameter data, like your continuous data or your metadata, and your QC files. So that is an overview of the modules.